Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Hello everyone, you are tuned into the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast, and today we are diving into a topic that's often overlooked but packs a punch. Why should you be going all in when it comes to your employees? We'll chat about why it's worth giving your time, effort, and resources into the people who make your organization tick. From boosting productivity and sparking innovations to keeping your team happy and loyal, we will spill the beans on why investing in your employees is a total game changer. For the same, here I am, your host for the show, Sushmita, and I have with me Navneet Mukund, Project Director, HR Consulting Asia at Mercer. So delighted to have you on the podcast, Navneet. Welcome to the show.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
So before we delve into our discussion today, please grace our audience with a glimpse into your journey, Navneet, the pivotal moments and influences that have, meticulously forged the remarkable persona we have before us today.
Right. So I can't say that where I am today is everything by design. So it's a mix of a bit of a planning and hard work and also good luck. Right, and blessing of near and dear ones.
True.
And everyone.
True.
So I think that in my earlier years during education, I often was not very sure about my career choices. So I think when I look back, I always feel that an opportunity for the youngsters to have multiple career paths and various streams that they can go to is sometimes lacking in a country like ours, right? And it also varies from cities and urban areas to rural areas, right? So where you grow up and which kind of school you go to. So the avenues that are open to you is always not very clear. They are limited. And how each of these avenues will kind of craft your career path is not very apparent if you're very young. Right, unless you get the right counseling and right discussion.
Yeah.
So all those pitfalls of this kind of a culture where I was also brought up, I was also afflicted with the same kind of pitfalls, right? So I ventured into one career, then was not very sure about it. Took some time to kind of double back on what I want to do, right? And then went into another line, completely a different line. So when I look back, being into 2-3 different lines gave me different perspectives on different industries and different careers. In fact, I was not in HR earlier, right? I was in hotel line, right?
Okay.
So I have some bit of an idea about hotel industry and hotel management and how it looks glamorous from the outside, but from the inside it is not so much, right? So it gives me a different perspective. But the other side of it is that it also set me back by a few years, and then I did my MBA, and after MBA I had certain choices of my career or industries that I want to go to or the kind of role that I want to do. Or even a simple thing like, when do you want to leave your job, right? And why you should leave your job and all these things. So all these decisions, they looked quite compelling at the time, like looking 10 years back or 5 years back or 20 years back. But if I had to do things differently, definitely, with the level of maturity that I have now, which I was lacking when I was early on in my career, I would definitely do some things differently about all these choices. And I'm making a very generic statement here about when you join a company, join an industry, what are the factors that lead you to, ultimately leave a job and look for a new opportunity. With more maturity, I think those decisions will be different.
Yeah, that's quite a shift in careers from like hospitality to HR. But what you are today is nothing less than a testament to the adaptability and diverse skill set that you have developed along the way. We are very glad to have you here today for the discussion, Navneet. And so let's dive into it, right? To start with, how do you see the landscape shifted regarding organizations' approaches to investing in their workforces? Like, what are some of the biggest changes that you have seen in the last few years, Navneet?
Right. So that was the qualifying statement that you just mentioned, right? Last few years, because when we talk about shifts in any realm, right, you should be very careful about whether we are talking about shifts in decades, like whether in the last 20 years how it has changed versus the previous 20 years, or we are talking about a shorter time frame, or quarter by quarter or year on year, right? So I look at it from three lenses. One is, of course, how things are changing from, say, a longer time frame. How things were 50 years ago, how things are now, how things have changed in the last 20 years, and how things will continue to change in the future, right?
Yeah.
And then the other time frame is that how do you see things changing pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, and then engagement and recognition and things like that, and what you want to invest in employees, right? That has taken a whole new meaning now. First of all, if you coming back to my point of how things change, when primarily it was a manufacturing and agricultural economy, how you look at investments in your employees a bit differently, right? For example, if you're working in a manufacturing setup, even now, or there were more manufacturing companies in the past, right? Bulk of your employees are unionized, right? I'm talking about longer time frame, and to kind of invest in a unionized setup, in a blue collar setup, it's a complete different ball game. It's a completely different ball game, right?
Yeah.
There are different levers that you have to use. You can have a unionized company, or there can be multiple unions, or there can be no union. Even if there are no union, then the way to invest in the employees is different. It means that you're doing a job well, and from a management side, and they don't really need to group up. They don't need to form a union and then go to you and talk to you. So, you have a better mechanism of employee listening. You understand what employee want, their motivations at different stages of their life cycle. And you take care of all your employees, whether they are blue collar or white collar.
True.
And you pay well, and you invest in them, in their education and their learning, right? And in their growth, and of course the salary part as well. So the entire concept is different. But remember, if you're talking about a manufacturing setup, and there were more manufacturing companies in the past, right? And there are today service companies and manufacturing companies. The investment that you do in a manufacturing setup is different. You don't have to spend so much because you have land, you have plant, you have multiple other investments which goes into the cost of a product, right? But when you talk about the last 20 years or the last 10 years, we have more services, employees in the services sector more. Manufacturing is also there, but if you talk about India alone, then you have employees in the service sector also. The entire IT industry is in the last 30-40 years only, right? It has come up, and the exponential growth it has seen is largely in the last 20-25 years, right?
Yeah.
So this often the employees investment is very, very important, right? If you go to a manufacturing company, and the decision between a 10% increase versus a 12% increase is taken very, very quickly, because you're talking about 10% of the cost which goes into employee, right? If you come to an IT company where there are hundreds of thousands of employees working, 200,000, 300,000, even a million, 1.5 million, right? So in this kind of setup where there are a lot of employees working, you cannot take that decision very easily about investments, right? Because your cost, your employee cost is perhaps 70% of your total cost.
Yeah.
In fact, your main cost is employee cost.
Yeah, employee cost, right?
Other than your IT cost and some of the other overheads, most of your cost is an employee cost. So that's why the investment has to be properly channelized, thought through well, and it is a very, very important discussion. Because if you don't invest, there will be attrition, and then there's a cost of attrition, there's a cost of training, there's a cost of hiring. All of that comes into play, right? So every decision that you take there are multiple parts and multiple factors having an influence on the decision that you are taking. So the outcome that you have to think is multiple things. I'm not saying it is more complicated. In the past also, if you're not taking the right decision, you could be looking at a strike in the factory or a lockout, right?
Yeah.
And people are working, people are working as they stopped working. But, and that is also complicated because every decision that you take, is having an impact on the entire township where your factory is located, right? But today, you're talking about much bigger pie. You're talking about a much larger cost of the employee base. You cannot decide that, okay, I'll give, instead of 8%, I'll give 9%. Because that kind of discussion is typically also for the earnings release. If you see an annual report or an earnings call of a IT company, always the discussion is always about employee also.
Yeah.
Look at Infosys, Wipro, and some of these companies. If you look at their interviews during the presentation of their annual report or before that, there's a lot of discussion about employee cost and employee attrition. And the CEO and the CFO and CHRO, if they're invited, they're often talking about it because it is affecting 500,000 employees.
Sure.
And a lot of billions of dollars of their cost, right? So definitely it is much more important.
So this is a critical area for sure. And we all understand that with the right approach, employee investment can generate huge returns, right? But it is not as simple as throwing some money at some random employee development programs, right? There must be some plans, some best practices that we need to follow to maximize the payoff.
Exactly, right? Because sometimes some of these topics, Sushmita, is taken very, very lightly. And I'm not saying HR department or business department, because HR is not always deciding alone, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I have a proposal for management development or leadership development, typically I'll make my proposal and go to my, if I'm not the CHRO, I'll go to my CHRO and then they will discuss, CHRO and CFO, they'll discuss together and CEO will also approve, right? Because of the same example that I gave you about the employee cost being a huge element of the total cost of the company, being 70 to 75% of the total cost. And because of a huge cost, everything is taken with a very microscopic lens. Anybody who's looking at it, they are spending a lot of time in the employee cost. And even it could be travel cost, it could be training cost, it could be compensation cost, and not all of them will be equally big. But because it is related to employee, right? Everything is looked at with a microscope, right? Yeah. So there has to be a proper research, thought process, looking at the return on investment. Now, return on investment is something that is always lacking. If you look at training and development, because you give that example, and I'm just taking it up, right, as that example. So in training and development, right, there are multiple stages of training effectiveness. And in a very technical term, people who are from the HR fraternity, they will know. So there's a model called Kirkpatrick's model of training effectiveness, and there are 4 or 5 stages of it, right? So typically, when we are looking at effectiveness, we are just looking at a post-training survey, right? So you take a survey with all the people who did the training, and you ask them about how the training was, right? About the content, about their effectiveness, and so on and so forth. So that is the first level. And that is the basic level. And the second level is whether you can remember about that training and use that training on the job, right? And imagine how many companies actually do that second stage of survey. It will be, in percentage wise, it will be much lower than in the first one, right? Where almost everybody is doing it. Second, very few companies are doing it, or very few trainers are doing it. And third will be that how you have improved in your job performance because of that training, and whether that is sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, can you improve just in one quarter, and whether it will stay for second quarter and third quarter? Will you remember it forever in your life? Are you so trained in that skill which you just took the training on? So nobody goes to the second, third, fourth stages, and it keeps dwindling. So from the first to second stage, there is a dwindle. And then further it is cut down in the third stage, and almost nobody does the fourth stage, right? And that's why sometimes number of man hours spent on training and some of these metrics are also not very useful, because if more people are taking the training, it does not mean that your performance level is increasing so much, or your productivity is increasing so much, or your skill level is increased so much in the company. Unless you tie your investments in training to the overall productivity increase, the performance increase, the revenue increase, right? Everything else is not that useful, right? Because, okay, fine, it is good to be trained, right? Whether that training is going to help you in the job and whether it has actually helped you in the job, unless we are testing that, unless we are actually trying to find out about it, right? So you have rightly pointed out that often not a lot of research is going into the return on investment and about how the training should be and where we should spend.
So that's, I think, one of the common obstacles or mistakes that trip up organizations. That is, lack of measurement, that they fail to track the ROI of their investment initiatives, and that hinders their ability to, optimize the strategies, right? So moving forward, Navneet, if we talk about the areas in which you think or you suggest that companies should focus on investing, what are they?
Yeah. So employee is a very, very, very important topic, right? And I'm just looking at the entire concept of the cost that goes into an employee, right? So of course one is something which is called compensation cost, right? So that is very direct, and we will not talk so much about it, right? Because that is a huge cost in itself, and you have to get it right, to be able to attract the employee and retain the employee and make sure. But just one point there, right? If you don't do your compensation right, it is possible that you are overpaying, right? I'm not saying that you are always underpaying. There are companies that there are possible that you are overpaying.
Yeah.
For example, if you do your compensation philosophy well, and suppose you have a good employer brand, you do not even need to pay at 50th percentile. If you go to 10 companies, Sushmita, and you ask them that where is your compensation positioning in the market, 9 out of those 10 companies will tell you it is 50th percentile. So if everybody is 50th percentile, then who is at 25th percentile, right? Why should everybody try to pay identical in the market? Okay, what is wrong in saying that, okay, I have a very good employer brand, right? I am known in the market for my training program, and I am the market leading company in my product or service category, right? And people just want to work for us, and we don't have to throw money at them, right? So, okay, fine. Then have your philosophy at 25th percentile. Pay people slightly under the market, right? So their stated positioning of where they want to position is always 50th, which is weird. It could be 25th also, because unless there are some companies at 25th and some at 75th, there is no median, right? Somebody should pay for the same job at 7.5 lakhs. Somebody should pay at 12.5 lakhs, and then somebody should pay at 10 lakhs also. If everybody is saying that I want to pay 10 lakhs, then where the data coming for 7.5 lakhs and 12.5 lakhs, right? So there are anomalies. So company has to get their pay positioning right. That is number one. Okay, if you are overpaying, then you are spending a lot of money which could have been spent on something else. Okay.
Yeah, as there could be equity and moral issues as well in such cases.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So that is number one. Number two is benefits. Right? You are not. You think that benefits is not important for employees. You sometimes say it is important, but the kind of investments that you are making, whether you are trying to make it flexible for the employees, how flexible you want to make it for different employee categories or avatars, if you will, right? So somebody who's just out of college and his or her motivation, and is it flexible enough for him or her, right? Somebody who's newly married and no kids, and what is the avatar of that employee, and what you should do for that kind of group of employees, right? Whether insurance is more important for them, or only cash is important for them, or flexibility in the job is important for them, right? Because they have to take care of somebody. If they are welcoming a new child in the family, they will look at flexibility more favorably than just cash and benefits.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
And then there are other categories that people who are in their 50s and late 40s, they are not so bothered about flexibility. Everybody loves flexibility, but maybe they are more bothered about the kind of pension program that you have, the kind of post-retirement benefits that you have, the kind of medical plan that you have, the kind of critical illness cover that you have, right? So how can you customize your program to suit the need of different avatars of employees in their different stages of their life cycle, different needs and motivation?
Yeah, customizing the packages according to their individual needs.
Correct. And then recognition, right? And recognition is also very important.
Yeah.
Are you doing just recognition just for tick box, right? So that, I have a plan where employee of the month or employee of the category award, and I have a best manager award, and I have something like some budget given to employees, and then at the end of the quarter that budget has to be spent, and then you can also nominate people from other departments, right? Are we that kind of a company where we just give budget to managers for recognition because there are monetary awards and vouchers and things like that can be given, and they are just getting expired at the end of the quarter or end of the year, and that's why those awards are being given? Okay, so having a budgeted approach and having an unlimited budget also, there are pros and cons of both these scenarios, right? So this is very important, that for which employee compensation is important, for which benefits is equally important, and recognition is important, like long service award.
Yeah.
Earlier, long service award was given only for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years category. But if the average tenure of employees is reducing in the first 10 years of his career, and you are giving him an award only after 10 years, then he will never get an award.
Yeah, exactly.
He will never get an award, right? Because most people will have churned out, and whoever will get the award will be maybe a bit more less ambitious from a career progression perspective, and he's okay not to be promoted for 10 years, and he's just sitting in that company, and he's okay to do his job 9 to 5, right? And then you are giving the person an award. So we have to put the dollar at the right place at the right time, and not just spend because it is being followed everywhere.
Yeah, so we have to leverage rewards and recognition, but definitely we should have a proper plan and strategy as to how we can take the most benefit from our strategies. Yeah. So any final piece of advice, Navneet? We are about to wrap up this conversation for today.
Right. So again, it's a very vast topic, and of course you can go on and talk about it forever, right? And if I'm very passionate about it, of course, I have a lot to speak on some of these topics. But the crux of the matter is, Sushmita, is that this entire investments in the employees, right? There is no proper research done, right? And unlike compensation and benefits, where you have a lot of surveys and a lot of vendors which can give you the data, right? And it is some science behind it, right? But rewards and recognition and other kinds of investments and training and development, the science behind it is not properly implemented. And people don't have time. People who are looking at the investments in the employee category, Sushmita, they also may be in the company only for 2-3 years, and then they will leave. I'm just talking about an average tenure, right? And then somebody else will come in, and he or she will not know that how it was done in the past. Start afresh, right? All the research that has already been done, that will all go to waste.
Go to vain,
right? So all of that, is adding to this complexity of the return on investment, which is not proper. And where your dollar investment should be ultimately, and they are not going in the right pocket, and they are going there just for the academic purpose. So you have a R&R program, you have a training and development program. Basically, it is all a check in the tick box, right? Okay, I am part of the HR department in my company. I work for a company. There are 5,000 employees working in this company. We have an R&R program. We have compensation benefits. We have everything, right? But do you really have it? Right? Do you really have it? Are you really able to engage your employees? Right? Are you really able to train your employees in such a way that there is a return on their investments? So these things are often missed out. And with this churn of employees, this is always missed out. So that education and this kind of podcast will really be helpful if the HR managers are listening to it and trying to imbibe it and use some of it as takeaways.
Yeah, sure. Brilliant, Navneet. But before we conclude, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work in this arena?
Yeah. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's a good platform for professional networking. My full name is Navneet Mukund, so I think it's not a very common name, so they'll be able to connect with me. And I'm kind of an open networker, not fully open, but I welcome all connections and then take the discussions offline, talk to people, be in the forums and seminars, and look forward to meet them if possible, right? If we can make the connect. So, very excited about this field itself. So people are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Brilliant, Navneet. Well, it's time to wrap up. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your invaluable contribution to our podcast today. Your insights have elevated the quality of our content and reaffirmed our commitment to promoting thought-provoking discussions. Thank you once again for your time, Navneet.
Thank you so much. And this is a lovely initiative. I mean, and to bring together the expertise and the experts and the people who will benefit from it. So you use this time and this platform. Of course, there is a marketing angle in this, I agree. But otherwise, it is also a good service that you're doing for people to give this platform to express their opinion. Right. So I think it's an innovative concept. As kudos to you.
Thank you, Navneet.
Right. To come up with something like this. And because there is a lot of webinars and in the market, but audio podcast is something good as well.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this initiative from your side.
Yeah. Thank you, Navneet. Take care. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.